Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina wa Mawlana Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahabati ajma'in. Allahumma inni nawaitu at-ta'allum wa at-ta'lim wa at-tadhakkura wa at-tadhkir wa al-nafa' wa al-intifa' wa al-ifadata wa al-istifada wa al-hatha ala tamassuki bi kitabillahi wa sunnati rasulihi sallallahu alayhi wa sallama wa ad-du'a ila al-huda والدلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم يا الله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا ومولانا محمد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Alhamdulillah that Allah blesses us to reconvene after the period of a break, and the fact that we can reconvene and discuss and hear and listen to and be part of any mention of anything of the great ulama of our deen, specifically about the words of the Prophet ﷺ, specifically in relation to the Quran. It's one of the greatest blessings that we can imagine in our lives, and so we shouldn't be unmindful of that. It's not just the fact that we get into our cars or we walk here or we come by bus. It's a great blessing that Allah allows us to be here, and the fact that this is something which He has written for us, and so really occasions for great gratitude just for that fact. Walhamdulillah ala al-Islam wa kafa biha an-ni'mah. That our gratitude and we praise Allah for the blessing of Islam, and just that it's enough, it's sufficient. We don't need anything more than just the fact that Allah blessed us with Islam. Alhamdulillah. So we will pick up on page 16, 17 of the book that we have, the translation, where the Imām begins by saying, أيها الولد اجعل الهمة في الروح والهزيمة في النفس والموت في البدن. That, O child, the Arabic is a little bit hard to translate here, and even the translation doesn't always help, even though, as I said, it's a very good translation. So the idea being here is that ij'al al-himma fi ruh, that place himma, zeal, this deep desire, place it in your spirit, and wal hazimata fi nafs, and place subdual. In other words, the idea that the Imam's really referring to here is the soul is a thing that needs to be subjugated. We'll come to that in a second. فِي النَّفْسِ وَالْمَوْتَ فِي الْبَدَنِ, and that death, understand it as being something that relates to your physical body. It's not something that relates to who you are, because you will continue and you will be judged. Of course, we believe that the judgment will be both in body and in spirit, but there is something which comes after the fact that we depart from our body. That's the first step in the akhirah. Now, what we'll see that the Imam is nudging us towards is the idea that the world, the material world, all of this around us, not necessarily speaking about the physical objects in the world, even though it does mean that, it's really us. Because the thing that when we look at each other, the thing that we see of another person immediately is not their soul. I know they say the eyes are sort of the doorway into someone's soul, but we don't see someone's soul. What we see when we see someone is the exterior of that person. We see their physical being, their physical form, their physical shape. And the physical shape is like this coat that I'm wearing that's covering me. It's like an additional skin that we wear, and the body is what's essentially the cover for our nafs, for our soul. And so what the Imam is really highlighting to us here is that the material world, specifically us, because before any material things, there's material us, right? That the material world is potentially a place of darkness. Because if you look at our conflicts as human beings amongst each other, they will always be as a result of the dunya, never as a result of the akhirah, never as a result of the deen. We may think sometimes that our conflict or our anger or our supposed, permissible enmity towards someone is on account of and the result of the deen, but that can never be the case. Enmity of the nature that's disliked, and all the munafasa that we have amongst each other, which is essentially competing with one another, it would always be over the dunya. And so what the Imam is telling us is that there's two parts to you. There's a part to you which is the soul, and that's the thing that ascends to the heavens, and there's part of you which is the body, which is, it's kind of like wandering in this world of material things, world of objects. And we have to consciously understand and think about that. Because when we step outside our house in the morning, even within our house, what are the things that we're seeing immediately in front of us? Yes, in addition to human beings. Now we can say, okay, in addition to human beings, in addition to our own physical self, we're seeing objects in the world. Now the thing about objects, physical objects, is that they create desire in us. When you see something that you want, most wars are fought over that. They are fought over sometimes anger, but they're really fought over things that someone else wants. It's land, it's oil, it's gold, it's riches, right? It's power, but power for what? So you can continue to dominate the world, right? So what we see is that physical objects in the world, physical things in the world, are a potential place of darkness if we treat them as things that we need to have. Because as we're told by the Prophet ﷺ, that the only thing that will fill the stomach of Bani Adam is the dust from his grave. Because the dunya is never going to suffice us. We can want and get as much as we want. We'll become grey over it. We're always chasing that one extra thing. Look, when I get to that, inshallah, then I can dedicate myself. I'm there. But I just need to, an extra £100,000 in the bank, and I think I'm okay after that, or whatever it might be. We're fooling ourselves, right? That £100,000, I guarantee you, will only lead to another 100. Because now you have it, you've gotten it once, you've got the model in place. Why can't I do it again? Because I can help my family now. The nafs it's impressive. You can't toy with it. There's no reasoning with the nafs. You can't sort of sit in a negotiation table with them. It's always going to defeat us. The nafs is adept at knowing exactly how to overpower us and defeat us. The way that you defeat the nafs is not through negotiation. The way that you defeat the nafs is by severing it from the things that it wants. That's what the Imam says. Isqata al-ala'iq. That's the word that he uses. That you just sever yourself from the things that are causing you that desire. There's no such thing as, maybe, let's try to have a middle ground. No, there's no such thing as a middle ground in that sense. Not talking about balance, that's a separate thing here. We're talking about in relation to our desire for the world. Right? But of course, the dunya doesn't have to be like that. We can potentially, if we are people of the spirit, the ruh, right, the nafs, we could see the same physical things as objects that Allah has placed for us to facilitate things in our lives. Now our perception of the world has changed completely. From wanting things and wanting more of the things, we're no longer wanting them, but we're appreciating them for the reason why Allah has put them there. Allah taught us how to make things. If you look at the Quran, Allah tells us that there were nations that came before us that could build carve and into rock, right? We know that he taught the people of Dawood alayhi salam how to soften metal, right, and make things out of them. So what we're seeing is that all objects in the dunya have come into the dunya as a result of some knowledge that Allah has given human beings. No, there's not a single thing that has come into the dunya, right, that just came as an inspiration from a human being and they just made it. No, it came because Allah gave them that knowledge and they used that knowledge to bring something into the world. That's where we want to be looking at it from, that perspective. Why did Allah, give someone the knowledge of making tables? Right? Why did Allah give someone knowledge of, and take a really basic chair. Have you ever thought about, is a chair actually useful for us? Right? A few years ago, I suffered from some back pains, and I did a little bit of research into this and spoke to some friends, physicians. And the more I looked into it, the more I realized that sitting on a chair is actually not great for your back. Sitting on the floor is the way to keep your posture and your back supported in a way that it carries the weight. And especially as in, like myself, you get into later years and unfortunately there's more of you to carry. The chair can't carry that weight in the way that it's helping your back. So you're unevenly placing your weight on the lower part of your back, and it's going to cause us issues. La samahallah, of course. Allah protect us. But something we probably never think about. And it got me thinking, okay, well, how did people used to sit before chairs then? Right? And how is the chair an object that's mentioned throughout history? Right? I mean, the chair is a place of sort of, it's used as a symbol of power. It's used as a symbol of reign, the arsh of Allah, the kursi of Allah, right? Or the chair in some subject, it's metaphorical obviously, or that the leader sits on the chair to address his people. The mimbar is like a chair. I know it's not actually a chair, but the idea is that there's a seat there, right? So it indicates a special occasion. But we've made the idea of a chair, again, just not saying it's right or wrong, but just a fact of it, that is, we use it without thought. That if we were to sit on the floor, we would struggle to do that now, even though it's better for us to do that. So the point is that the same objects that we find in the world, material objects, just as they can be places of potential darkness, by which I mean that desire, and sometimes unfettered desire, unchecked desire, sometimes unhinged desire, but the very same things could also be the locus of reflection on Allah's mercy, majesty, power, knowledge, right? That He gave us all these things. What's the wisdom in Allah giving us all these things, right? And then you have to think, okay, well, how are we using the things? I mean, take as an example, Allah has given us, alhamdulillah, the ability to think, the ability to reason, right? That's how we operate in the world. That's what makes us different from everything else. What kind of knowledge do we have if we use that knowledge, la samahallah, for nefarious means? Can it be called knowledge? Right. For instance, someone uses their knowledge to build, to construct an atomic bomb. Right. You've all probably heard of that film, Oppenheimer. It's a real story, right? The fact that they created a village, the Manhattan Project, a village of the most elite scientists known to man at that time, and they congregated them in this place which was so top secret, no one knew about what was going on there. Why? So they could create this object of utter destruction. If we really reflect on that for a moment, you think what are the great minds supposed to converge together for? They're supposed to converge for the betterment of mankind, for the advancement and the healing of mankind. Here we have an example of human beings converging for the utter destruction of other people. That's why they say in Arabic, Inna min al-ilmi jahl. It's a very odd statement in Arabic. It means that a part of knowledge, or there are aspects of knowledge which are actually ignorance. But if you try to unpack it, what it means is that there's things that you can come to know, but in reality, that if you acted on those, it's still knowledge. If you acted on it, really it's a sign of your ignorance. And this is an example when we use the blessing of knowledge that Allah has given us for nefarious means. We can't truly call that knowledge, even though strictly, definitionally, yeah, it's knowledge, but is it not more toward the side of ignorance than it is toward the side of knowledge? So everything has to be put into that scale. Are we using what we know for benefit, or are we using what we know for harm? Are we using what we know for others, or are we using what we know for ourselves? There'll always be, the world is set up in opposites like that. It's others or it's myself. It's egotism and selfishness, or it's altruism, preferring other people. What does Allah Azza wa Jal say about human beings in the Quran? Innal insana khuliqa hulu'a. That man has been created in a state of anxiousness. We're always worried about things. Right? Innal insana khuliqa hulu'a. Idha massahu shar jazu'a. That when misfortune or some difficulty may befall, he becomes fretful. Right? وَإِذَا مَسَّهُ الْخَيْرُ مَنُوعًا. But when he is given blessings, he becomes tight-fisted. Right? And then Allah tells us the list of people who don't engage in that behavior in this same surah. Right? So we're being told exactly the sort of state that we find ourselves in relation to our being as humans, and in relation to the things that we do in the world for ourselves and for others. And so here then the Imam, as I said, he's saying that, look, the ruh is where the focus is. And the Imam says that this is where we're going to learn how to reach the highest states. Whereas what you should do is, your zeal and your hard work should be related to the ruh, and you should place your fighting spirit against the nafs. Right? وَجْعَلِ الْهَزِيمَ فِي النَّفْسِ. In other words, our approach to the nafs should be one of war. That's how we look at it. It's because in fact, if you look at the hadith, what's the greatest jihad? Jihad al-nafs. Meaning even the term to battle yourself is a military term in deen. It's a hadith. That you wage war against your nafs. Right? In war, there's no negotiation, right? You cut it out. You get rid of it. You remove it. وَالْمَوْتَ فِي الْبَدَنِ. And make and understand that death is something which is part of the physical body. In other words, consider yourself dead already. There's a beautiful statement I heard many, many years ago by Malcolm X. It's available online, you can watch it. It's just a 20-second clip. And someone asked Malcolm X, they said, are you not worried about the fact that, because this is once he had left the Nation of Islam and Tabarakallah, adopted Sunni Islam as after his pilgrimage to Mecca, etc. And they said, are you not worried that you might be the object of or target for assassination attempts? And he said, look, I consider myself dead already. I died 20 years ago. That's how he lived his life. It's really a human being that if you look at photos of him from before he went to prison, after he was released from prison, and he was a member of the Nation of Islam, and then when he made his pilgrimage to Mecca and post Mecca, you can see the nur increasing on this man's face. It's physically palpable when you see him. Look at the final pictures of this man, and you can see that truly his eyes tell you that this man left the world many years ago. He's here for a function. He's here for a purpose. That's it. And so if you read the accounts for when they did finally assassinate him, they say, the people who eyewitnessed it, literally he welcomed it. He didn't run. Right? And it's actually a really strange thing that on that particular day, what happened, I'm not going to go through it here, but those of you who want to go through it, it's fascinating. There are like minor miracles that occurred for them to get to the stage to be able to assassinate him, because he's a very prominent figure, right? But he never ran, he wasn't so afraid. This is it, time's up, I'm ready to go, no problem, right? So then the Imam says the following. He says, لأن منزلك القبر وأهل المقابر وأهل المقابر ينتظرونك في كل لحظة متى تصل إليهم. Because your destination is the grave. In other words, consider yourself dead already. Because your destination is the grave, and the people of the graves are waiting for you. They're expecting you to turn up at any moment. Right? But then the Imam says, إِيَّاكَ إِيَّاكَ أَن تَصِلْ إِلَيْهِمْ بِلَا زَادٍ. It's like a warning that not just be, real strong counsel here. Don't turn up to that place without provisions. Meaning, if we're going to go on some rihla somewhere, or we're going to be away from our homes for a certain period of time, it would be totally foolish for any individual to leave their home with just the clothes on their back. You've even left your credit card at home, right? You're just walking. That's not any preparation for the journey. It's not any preparation for being away from home for that long. So, what's the Imam saying here? He's saying your ultimate destination are the people who are waiting for you. What are you going to turn up with? And the subsequent chapters are really beautiful because they explain what is this zad, what is this provision that you can take with you to the grave, because that's exactly what we should be asking ourselves. What can I take? What will be considered provisions for the qabr? And in the subsequent chapters, I'm not sure exactly where it is right now, but the Imam speaks about those who recognize that, understood what the provisions are, forgot about everything else, focus on the provisions. These are the things that are going to accompany me in the grave. Now, and then the Imam says, moving to page 18, that the great Siddiq of this ummah, As-Siddiq al-Akbar, the greatest wali. قال سيدنا أبو بكر الصديق رضي الله تعالى عنه وأرضاه, the greatest companion, the first Khalifa, the friend of the Prophet alayhi salam, the best of all the companions, the greatest saint of this ummah, that he said, هذه الأجساد قفص الطيور واستبل الدواب. That Sayyidina Abu Bakr said that these bodies, look at their understanding, because you might think, oh, it's such a beautiful phrase, it's such a beautiful statement, right? But look at the meaning of what he's saying. He's saying, this is what he says: these bodies, these physical bodies, are a cage for birds or a stable for beasts. They're either a cage for a bird or a stable for beasts. And what does the Imam say? The Imam says, فَتَفَكَّرْ فِي نَفْسِكَ مِنْ أَيِّهِمَا أَنْتَ. And so think about yourself. Which of the two are you? Do you consider yourself to be the caged bird? Or is your soul a beast in its stable? Your body is just a stable for the beast, which is your soul. Right? إن كنت من الطيور العلوية عفوا فحين تسمع الطنين الطبل ارجعي إلى ربك تطير صاعدا إلى أن تقعد في أعالي بروج الجنان. That if you are one of the heavenly birds, when you hear the sound of the drum beat, right? In other words, when you're supposed to go back to Allah, this is the ayah from the Quran, return to your Lord, Allah saying to the nafs, you will fly upwards till you roost on the highest towers in the gardens. Right? Now, what does a bird do when you free it from a cage? Right? It's not going to hang about. It's out of there before you've even opened the door of the cage. Right? It's a figure of, we speak in a caged bird. What do we mean by that? That you don't even have to fully open the door and that cage is out the door. Is that bird what your soul is like? Can't wait to get out of your body. Right? Can't wait to get out the body. And not just that, which direction does the bird move in when it leaves? It goes upwards. It doesn't come down and go shh. When the bird leaves the cage, it goes upwards. Look at the symbolism in that. And look at the word of the Siddiq. The symbolism is that this bird, if you analogize it to the soul, not only can it not wait to get out as soon as the door is open, but it's going to ascend. Why? Because it's in the nature of the soul to ascend. It's in the nature of the bird to ascend. And so is your soul like this, like that bird? Has your soul, the nature of your soul become such that it's not only itching to get out of its body, but also when it leaves the body, it ascends. Now, that's why they say that the greatest and the happiest day of a believer is a day that you die. That's dua of the Salihin. That Allah make the happiest day of our lives the day that we meet you. And there should be a shawq, a longing to meet with Allah long before that we've left this world. Because you think about, we can all sit and ask ourselves now or when we go home, hopefully often, that am I ready to go right now? If I was to go right now, and inshallah Allah give us good health and long lives of ibadah, but if we were to go now, are we ready to go? What are the things that, what are the things that we need to set in order before we left then? Are there people that we've upset? Right? Are there relationships that we need to mend? Are there apologies that are due? Are there wrongs that need to be corrected? Right? Are there people that we've hurt? Is there money that needs to be paid back? Are there fasts that we've missed and we haven't made them up? Is there zakat that we need to pay, we just haven't gotten around to paying it? Are there prayers that we missed and we haven't completed them? We can make a list. And we can look at that list like we look in a mirror. And you can say to yourself that this is what's preventing me from wanting to meet Allah. Because which human being wouldn't want to meet Allah? Think about it. Which human being wouldn't want to meet Allah? So the only thing that would prevent us, i.e. we want to stay here a bit longer because we feel we're not prepared, it's the list of things that we've written down. Well, chuck them out, get rid of them. Let's work on them. Let's try to tick that list off. There's this expression in language now, bucket list. That's, if you talk about bucket list, that's your list that you need to be working on. Bucket list is essentially more dunya. What different ways can I enjoy myself in this material world? That list is a preparation for how to meet Allah. And it cannot be that we can make that list prevent us from having this longing and desire to want to meet with Allah. If you think about what's the greatest thing that you've ever loved, would you ever want to be separated from that love? No. The greatest thing that we love and should love, consciously, knowingly, understanding what that means, is Allah and His Messenger alayhi salam. And all the things that prevent us should be ticked off our list so that it don't become barriers. We've put them there ourselves. In Arabic, the word for love, as you know, what is it? Hub. It's a completely different meaning in Arabic to what it is in English. In Arabic, in English, love is this idea that you're essentially looking for a person's affection upon you. Right? That's love. In Arabic, hub is the same word for a seed. Habba. You plant it in the ground. Now, what's the nature of a seed? It will only grow commensurate to the effort that you put into it. A seed will never grow if you just had a seed, left it on a table, it will just die. If you have a seed and you put it into the earth and don't water it, it will die. You're not going to get any fruit from it. That's why love in our tradition, hub is a result of the effort that you put in. It's commensurate with that. the more you nurture the person that you're supposed to be loving, the more you're going to get back from them. It's a hugely beautiful idea. Now, what's the thing that Allah tells us in the Quran? That Allah, when two people get married, He places, out of His mercy, mawadda bainakum. He places this love, which is a higher state of hubb, and then you have mawadda. Mawadda is a deeper type of love. That the first stages of marriage are free, the love is planted in your hearts. And then it's up to you now to nurture it. Which way are you going to take it? If a relationship starts going bad, it's because the nurturing has stopped. It's the effort has stopped. It's the care, because it's all about care and concern. If you're not worried that insects may come and eat your plant, or it may be getting too much water, or it may be too directly, in the sense, getting too much sun. I'm not sure if that's possible for a plant, but that means we're not taking care of it. It's going to die. It's the deep symbolism, as we always speak about, between the language and reality. Hubb is something that will grow commensurate to how much effort we put into it. Now, and so look at this. That's what the Imam is telling us first. That which sort of a soul are you? The one like a bird who can't wait to get out the cage, and once it leaves the cage, it flies upwards. Now look at this. كما قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم اهتز عرش الرحمن من موت سعد بن معاذ رضي الله عنه. Allah Allah. That Allah's Messenger said, alayhi salam, that the throne of Allah shook at the death of Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh. Right, that the throne of Allah, it shook, it trembled when Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh passed away. Now Sayyidina Sa'ad bin Mu'adh, as you know, was the leader of the Aus, of the Ansar, because the Ansar, we know, were the Aus and the Khazraj, and collectively they refer to as the Ansar. They say that his makan, his standing and status amongst the Ansar, that he was the Abu Bakr of the Ansar. That Sayyidina Abu Bakr is Abu Bakr of the Muhajirun, and of course of the Ansar as well. But they say that who is the equivalent of Sayyidina Abu Bakr from amongst the Ansar is Sa'ad bin Mu'adh. Right? And when he became Muslim at the hands of Mus'ab bin Umair, the great companion, anhu, who came from a very wealthy family. They say about Sayyidina Mus'ab that when he would pass by a certain street, you'd know he'd been there even long after he had gone, because of the intensity and of the fragrance that he would wear. It's from a very wealthy family, and is a strikingly beautiful individual, Sayyidina Mus'ab bin Umair. And so the Prophet ﷺ, after the first pledge of Aqaba, he sent Sayyidina Mus'ab to Medina to give them da'wah. Now you think about this, that of all the companions that the Prophet ﷺ could have sent, right, he sent Mus'ab. They gave him a great message in that, because Mus'ab was striking to look at. And there's something about when you look at someone who's beautiful, that that melts your heart before they even say anything. If you look at someone who's beautiful, it softens you. Now can you imagine if what they're saying is so beloved, it's a compound effect. And then you add that into someone who has a nur of Islam deep inside them. Right? So Sayyidina Mus'ab was sent to Medina, and the great Sa'ad bin Mu'adh became Muslim at his hands. And what did Sayyidina Sa'ad say after that? He went back to his people, because he's the Sayyid of the Qawm, he's the leader of the Qawm. He said that anything that so he gathered all his tribe together, the Aus, and he said to them that all of the men amongst you and all of the women amongst you, anything you say is haram for me until you all become Muslim. And they all became Muslim. Look at the power of a leader, right? And so he fought with the Prophet ﷺ in the Battle of Badr, so he's from the Ahlul Badr, right? He fought with the Prophet ﷺ in the Battle of Uhud, and he fought with the Prophet ﷺ in the battle of Khandaq. And it was as a result of the battle of Khandaq that he was martyred. And he was in his 30s when he passed away. He was a very young man. A very young man. And so you can imagine then that when the Prophet ﷺ said that, that the arsh of Allah shook when Sa'ad bin Mu'adh passed away, So why is this hadith being mentioned here? Because it's trying to tell us that, look, there are souls like this bird, that they want to free themselves of the body, and when they come out, they ascend. But then there are souls like Sa'ad. He's not just ascending, his death is a result of a magnificent cosmic event. Right? That's the echelons of the greatest of the awliya of Allah in existence. And what they say, of course, because the meaning is, it's when you think, what does it mean? Ihtaza Arshur Rahman, be Maut Sa'ad. That they say that it's a way of expressing that it's at the sort of happiness that Sa'ad is now here. He's left the world and he is in the heavenly realm, amongst the great arwah. And there are other explanations to this as well. Some of the commentators say that what it means is that because we know that there are a group of angels that are carrying the arsh of Allah, right? And it's referring to them, that they shook when Sayyidina Sa'ad passed away. Radiallahu anhu. I mean, really, min al-mu'minin al-rijal. Sadaqu ma'ahadullah alayhi. That, from amongst the believers, there are people that are referred to as men, right? And these are the people who were faithful and truthful to the covenant that they took with us. And men in this context, wallahu a'lam, doesn't mean necessarily a man. It literally in Arabic means someone who can properly stand on their 2 feet, because rajul comes from the rijl, which is legs, and the idea that being able to stand, right? And so these are the group of people that they took an oath with Allah, they took a covenant with Allah, and they were faithful and they honored it. And this is the ayah that was revealed at Uhud, and at the passing of Sayyidina Hamza, and also Sayyidina Mus'ab bin Umair. Because Mus'ab, as you know, as I mentioned, was very wealthy, but when they buried him, they couldn't find enough material to cover his body. Right? So, again, these are the companions who are the exemplars for us and how they live their lives. Now, وَالْعَيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ إِن كُنْتَ مِنَ الدَّوَابِ كما قال الله تعالى أولئك كالأنعام بل هم أضل. And that Allah forbid if you are one of the beasts. As Allah the Exalted said, they are as cattle, no, they are more astray. We've spoken about this ayah many times in these gatherings, that being referred to as a beast, and then it's saying, no, in fact, they're worse than beasts. I mean, in other words, let's leave the beasts out of this, because the beasts have a sabil, as we said. What does that mean? It means that the reason or the purpose that Allah has created the beasts for, they fulfill that purpose. The cows, they graze, right? And the horses, they serve as riding beasts for human beings, and so on and so forth. The animals that Allah has placed, He has made them such that they are musakhir. They have been subjugated to us and for us, and they're serving their purpose. In other words, the path that Allah has made for them, they don't swerve away from it. You don't have a cow that says, no, I don't think I'm going to have grass, I'll go and eat the tree, for example. It doesn't do that. Or a horse, for example, doesn't say, no, I don't feel like, all the horses all of a sudden decide, we're not going to serve as riding beasts for these humans. They don't deserve to ride us. They don't do that. Right? They're subservient. The sabil that Allah has set for them, they follow. But it's only human beings that go outside of their sabil. The thing that we're here for, we sometimes, and it happens that you swerve away from it. And that's why, look, hum kal an'am, they're like be beasts, right? As cattle, I beg your pardon. No, they're even more astray. Right? Now, اللهم صل على محمد. فلا تأمن انتقالك من زاوية الدار إلى هاوية النار. So therefore, let yourself not feel safe from being removed from the corner of your home to the chasm of the fire. In other words, which one of these two are you? The bird or the beast? And wal-'ayadhu billah, if you're of the beast, then don't feel secure that when you leave this cage, you're not ascending. It's actually downward spiral, right? وَنَسْأَلُ اللَّهَ السَّلَامَ وَالْعَافِيَةَ. وروي, and we'll just finish on this, وروي أن الحسن البصري رحمه الله تعالى أعطي شربة ماء بارد فأخذ القدح وغشي عليه وسقط من يده فلما أفاق قيل ما لك يا أبا سعيد قال ذكرت أمنية أهل النار حين يقولون لأهل الجنة أن أفيضوا علينا من الماء أو مما رزقكم الله. That it's related that Al-Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah ta'ala, that he was given a drink of cold water. So he took the cup and he fainted. And the cup, it dropped from his hand. And when he came out of this state, it was said to him, what happened, Abu Sa'id? He replied, I recall the longing of the people of the hellfire when they will say to the people of Jannah, pour down water upon us or whatever Allah has bestowed upon you. Now, think about that for a second. Sayyidina Hasan al-Basri, you have statements like this from him. That when they mentioned, Wallahu a'lam, Sayyidina Hasan, that person who's the last one to leave the hellfire, and they say, would that I know that's me, or words to the effect. He said, why would you say that? He said, because I know that man's guaranteed to enter paradise. Right? Would that I know that one deed of mine would be accepted by Allah, and I would feed the whole village, the whole town. When you think about those things, you think, life is a part of what we're here for, is to do that one act at the very least. There should be many like this, but at the very one act that was truly for Allah. There was nothing in it for us. But I'm talking about here even the things that we tend to do in the darkness of our own lives, right? In our homes, and we do good things, and but you can become convinced of yourself how great you are. You don't need other people to be there. Alhamdulillah, I did this, I did that, right? No, we're talking about doing that one act that proceeded from us purely for the sake of Allah. Because what else can these things mean then? These are people that all they're doing is just worship. No? And so if they're saying that if we were to know just one act was accepted, wow, that's deep. What does that mean? No?